January the 4th, 2022. This is video number 3. Really wishing I had not skipped a day this year, so the dates and the number of videos lining up would be nice. Anyway, I going with the theme that is just kind of where I am at in life and kind of keeping it real. I continue to experiment with lighting. If my face seems lit differently in every video, that's because it is. Also keeping it real, I have laundry in the background. It's clean laundry, it just needs to be folded and put away. But yeah, I sat down here to do a video and was like, there's laundry in the background. And I'm like, you know what, that's real. We're bringing them the real right now. So that's real laundry in the background that really needs to be folded, and I'll probably do that tonight. Anyway, wasn't actually going to do a video tonight, and I saw a meme. Of course, we all see memes all the time. It's not a bad meme. It's actually funny, taken as a meme, but people were taking it like super seriously, and just kind of thought I wanted to comment on it. I have no idea. I did comment on it. I have no idea how that comment will be received. I kind of don't care. But the meme was about renting and about landlords. And the gist of it is a landlord says, sends a text message to a tenant. Hey, heard you lost your job, heard you're having a hard time. How would you like a free month of rent? And the tenant replies like, oh man, this could be the thing that helps me get like back on the right foot. And it's going to be such a stress off of me to, not have to worry about making the rent this month. And the joke is kind of that you're presented with just that one back and forth, those two text messages in the chain. But right at the very bottom of the meme, you can see there's a continuation to the discussion, and it's the landlord replying back to the tenant, no, just kidding, F you, pay your rent. Something to that effect. But it's kind of cut off, so you can't see like whole letters, and it's like a blink and you miss it kind of thing. I mean, as memes go, that's funny. I've never had a landlord like that, but I know people that have. I'm sure it's actually probably a very common experience, and that's kind of why I wanted to comment on it. I used to be a landlord. I was a good landlord. I didn't own the best property. It was a good property. It's a house that I myself lived in on 2 different occasions and was very glad to live there when I did. Structurally sound, clean, everything worked. Could have used a little work on the back deck, needed some things, the heater, the dishwasher, needed to be updated. And as I owned the property, I did actually update the water heater, the furnace, and the dishwasher. I had that rent coming in, so I could afford to update those things, and was glad to do it. But I was a good landlord, and for the area that the house was in, the rent was lower than the average. The house might not have been like a super great house, but it was an average condition for the area, and it was charging a below average rental rate. And a little bit of that particularly was selfish on my part. I had a good job at the time. I didn't want to spend months trying to find someone to rent it. I was just like, hey, if I rent a couple $100 lower than what people expect to rent in this part of town, then I have get a lot of applicants right off the jump, and then I can kind of screen them and pick who I want to live there. So it was a little self-interested, but nonetheless, I had a house in a really great part of town that was perfectly serviceable condition, and they were be able to rent that for less than the average. Now that's not why I'm patting myself on the back. That's just the beginning context. With each renter I had in there, one time I lowered the security deposit very substantially, so this particular young woman could move in there. She was getting out of a bad relationship. She had kids. She was hurting. She was in need of a space. She had a job. It was a decent job. So I was like, she's going to make rent. So I thought, and and she's not going to tear the place up. So I thought, and so I just said, hey, look, here's what the first month's rent is. don't worry about paying this big, huge security deposit. We'll collect it over the first several months after you move in and kind of build the security deposit over time. And she did do that. But she didn't live there long, and she decided to move out, and she left without paying rent, and the house was in terrible, terrible shape. So I'm like, great, I did this nice thing, and I couldn't give her her security deposit back because she had left a whole month rent, off and did all this damage. I was actually coming out with the short end of the stick. On another occasion, I gave somebody December for free. They were having a hard time, some health stuff, and I just said, hey, look, you've been here for almost a year, you've paid your rent, let's just, December is a Christmas gift. And I gave that to them, and I was glad to do that at the time. And then they left without paying their last month's rent, without paying all of their utilities, and the house wasn't in great condition. It wasn't terrible, but it still needed quite a bit. So, there we go again. I'm trying to be the good landlord, trying to be, helpful, and I'm just not getting the reciprocity. And there were other situations that were similar. I won't go into all of them. In the comment, I went into a few more of them. But the idea is there are good landlords. So why is it so common for the joke to be that there are so many terrible landlords? And why is it for the joke to be that all these rental properties are in such terrible shape? Well, my renters ran me off. I had such a bad experience with renter after renter after renter, especially with the utility companies, people not paying their utilities. At one point, I paid somebody's bill for them on a utility. I didn't ask for it back. I just didn't want to have to deal with it getting cut off and getting it turned back on. And I didn't ask for that back. But anyway, so, I got ran out by the renters. It's not that, all the landlords are terrible. It's that the good landlords get the crappy renters and they stop being landlords. And so then you have two things happen. One of two things happen. A crappy landlord buys the property, so where there was once a good landlord, there's now a guy you don't want to deal with. Or, which is the case for me, somebody who wants to live in the house buys the property. So now you've not only taken a good landlord out of the renting ecosystem, but you've taken a nice house, a better house. Again, I'm not saying this house was crazy good, but it was decent, and I was working on it and improving it, despite the fact that each renter was undoing progress. I was fixing that and upgrading. And so the landlord that's motivated to do that kind of thing in a property that's decent and improving now goes out of the market. It's not available to renters because the person that bought it's living there. So that's sort of the unspoken part of all this. You want to complain about crappy landlords and crappy property, but you don't want to own the fact that you're crappy renters. And I guess the part of this that kind of made me think it was worth commenting on in the social media was that people were like, oh yeah, that renter, if he did that to me, that like, oh, F you got to pay your rent anyway, I'd just tear the place up before I left. And then somebody called back, who you kidding? We tear the place up every time we leave anyway, because landlords are awful. And it was just all this kind of like poo-pooing on landlords. So I said my piece, which is similar to what I've said here in this video, and I just ended it with, like, nobody wants to talk about why your landlords and your properties are so terrible, and that's because people like you, crappy renters, run them out. So actually I said shitty renters, and I do swear on occasion. I'm not going to make a habit of it, but for fire for effect, so to speak. I don't want to swear all the time, but sometimes it helps get the point across. So again, in terms of keeping it real, I didn't say crappy renters, I said shitty renters. And I don't know if anybody will comment to that. It might not be seen, nobody might care. They might, oh, you're one of the evil landlords, even though I actually was a decent landlord. I'm out of that game now. So anyway, I was getting ready to settle in for the evening, and I thought, hey, I want to do these videos. I was thinking at least 3 a week. So this is 3 not in a row, but 3 in 4 days. So yeah, I just thought this is a thing I could talk about on a video real quick. It says a little something about me and my history and where I come from, and how my mind works. Because again, this theme of like just keeping it real, just kind of introducing myself to people who might come onto the channel. And we just hit the 10-minute mark, so I'm not going to ramble. Number 3 video in the bank. I'm going to leave it at that. If you want to ask me any questions, feel free to drop a comment. And again, I might not answer every question for personal reasons, but at this point, with the channel being so small, I absolutely will see every comment. And if it's something I'm comfortable telling you more about, I will. But whether I choose to or not, feel free to ask me anything. I won't be offended that you asked. Just please don't be offended if I choose not to answer. And that's it. We're going to call this one number 3 in the bank. Thanks for tuning in.